So you want to make music, but you're not sure where to start. Today, I'm breaking down everything you need to know to begin your music production journey. From choosing a DAW to printing your first bounce, while including as many real-world strategies, settings, and tips as possible. If you're new here, I post videos every week and I'm on the road to 100 subs. Let's get into it. DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation, and it's the software behind everything in pro audio. There's loads to choose from, but for right now, the best DAW is simply the one you can get your hands on. I started on a stripped-down version of Cubase that was free with my first interface. For PC users, FL Studio can be a good place to start, and for Mac users, there's always GarageBand. In case you're wondering, most Pro Studios are Mac-based. If you have a bit of money to spend, I personally recommend Logic Pro, which is Mac only, but it's a one-time purchase and it's fully capable. I personally switched to it after using Pro Tools for 5 years. Now that we have a DAW, let's rapid fire through a few settings. In Logic, be sure to enable complete features. We're going to set the file type to broadcast wave, the bit depth to 24-bit, but most DAWs internally process at 32-bit float. And for sample rate, let's use 48 kilohertz. An oversimplified way to think about what the I/O buffer size is that you're setting how much time you're giving the computer to think about what it's doing. Higher numbers decrease the load on your CPU, but add latency, while lower numbers decrease the latency, but increase the load on your CPU. So set it low when you're tracking and increase it when you're mixing and adding processing. If it's too low, you'll have crackling in your recordings and dropouts or error messages during playback. Lastly, be sure to select your audio interface as the audio input and output device. The main window is typically an edit or timeline view with tracks vertically stacked on top of each other. This is where most of your time will be spent. The other main window is a mix view with tracks side by side, resembling that of an analog mixing console. For now, just focus on the basics, like how to make new tracks, use the transport controls, volume, panning, muting, and soloing. Input monitoring lets you listen to a track source, which is especially useful for playing in MIDI instruments or vocal tracking, while record enabling lets you choose which tracks you want to record. When recording a microphone, you'll have to select the appropriate input on the channel itself. If you don't hear anything and you're using a condenser mic, make sure phantom power is turned on. Then turn up the gain on the preamp until the peak level of your signal is around -10 dB in the DAW. You always want to stay below the ceiling for all your tracks, including the master fader. Drums, bass, a chordal instrument, and a melody make up the foundation for any idea or loop. Keep it simple and feel free to use presets, existing loops, or samples from places like Splice if you're new to coming up with ideas on your own. Logic has a built-in session drummer that can bring drum, bass, and piano parts right into your track, which can be super useful if you don't play those instruments. Let's make something together really quick. All right, let's start with the drummer. Let's go pop rock. Let's add a bassist next. Yeah, let's go pop rock as well. All right, let's add a keyboard player. Yeah, let's do three. What's nice is we can change the tempo at any time, and we can change the chords that are auto-generated. Let's make this an A minor, and let's make this a C. Same over here. Let's go A minor, let's go C. And just like that, we are ready to write a melody or track some vocals. The next goal is to get an outline of the whole form. Identify what part of the song you have and brainstorm some new ideas for sections that it could build up to or break down into. Don't be afraid to use existing songs as references to navigate this process. When you have that form, you can then add pads, effects, and other sounds to fill out the arrangement and transition between sections. Layering different sounds over the same part can be an easy way to make things sound more interesting. Don't be afraid to whip out the eraser either if something isn't working. It's totally part of it. Mixing can seem like a daunting task, and to be fair, the ocean goes pretty deep. However, the heart of mixing is really just volume. Most mixing techniques are just different ways to affect the volume within and between sources across the frequency range. Here's some rapid-fire guidelines and tips to get you started. Keep your kick, snare, bass, and lead vocal in the center. Double tracking and hard panning left and right sounds great on background vocals and guitars. Keep your low frequencies mono. I do all the way up to 185 Hz. Use bus sends for reverbs and delays. Use distortion and saturation all over. High and low pass filters can go a long way in cleaning up a mix. Don't be afraid of compression. Bring a reference into your session to maintain perspective on your overall balance. Putting a limiter on your master fader can save your ears if something peaks like crazy. You can also add mix bus processing at any time. Individual tracks are never going to be heard in solo. It's the sum of the parts that matters. Take breaks, especially if you feel ear fatigue setting in. This can also be a sign that your mix is too harsh or bright. Lastly, if it sounds good, it is good. Once you're ready to print or bounce your song, select the appropriate regions in the timeline and open the bounce menu. Make sure you aren't cutting off any reverb tails with the end of your selection. I print a bounce after every session, so I use MP3s to save on hard drive space when they don't matter, but for everything else, you're going to want to print a WAV file because it's a lossless format. Many distributors accept 24 or 48 WAV files. However, if you're using CD Baby or you want to print it onto CDs, you're going to have to convert it to 16-bit 44.1 kHz. Anytime you lower the bit depth of an audio recording, an artifact called truncation occurs, which we mask with a technique called dithering, which is essentially adding very, very low levels of noise. You only ever want to dither once and right at the end. Congratulations on your first song. If you have any questions or ideas for future videos, let me know down in the comments. That's all I got. See you next week. Bye. Want to hear a song that hits different? This is my new song, Screwed. If you like pop rock vibes and guitar solos, this is for you. You can find it, link in the description. Bye.
If you leave me here right out in the open, I'm screwed.